Hello, I'm Odin, and today I'm going to continue with my Mechagodzilla build. Now, typically on my channel with the videos that I do, I like to have a complete project in one video. It's more entertaining that way. You can see it all come together. Well, not only is Mechagodzilla too big to just fit into one episode, I'm shooting around the holidays right now. I don't even think I can get this chapter done in one episode. And that's why with this video, I'm only going to be working on the neck for the 1974 Mechagodzilla. I made some major modifications to the helmet from the last episode. The layer of the red 2mm foam covers over all of the seams, and the black blocks on the sides hold Mechagodzilla's head in just the right place. I put a ring inside of the head so it sits on the black blocks level with the ground when it's on my head. So I'm thinking about attaching this permanently with Velcro, which isn't permanent, but that's the point. If I have just the 4 points for Velcro attachment, it'll be very securely attached to this underhelmet that I actually wear, but I could still potentially remove it to change things or fix the jaw or something in the future. As far as putting it together, I would have to put pieces of paper in here, right? So I can actually slide the Velcro over each other, but that's a little later. Right now, I'm okay with the friction fit. So unfortunately, it's still very front heavy because of all the stuff in the snout. I can add more weight to the back. That'll just put more weight on my neck. What I think I'm gonna do is add a ring on this that'll attach inside the neck, so it'll actually be support in the neck of the costume that'll support the head, so it'll be off of my neck, which is a much better plan. But for now, I think this is gonna work, and I can actually start making the stuff for the neck. So let's get that cut out. I made a large paper pattern for the neck. I used a truncated cone pattern maker as a starting point and then modified it slightly for what I wanted. I'm going to use my large sheet of 6mm What the foam to make the neck. I set my pattern in the same orientation as the roll of the foam because I wanted to curl up that way anyway. What the foam is a high strength foam. It's a really good middle ground between Warbler and EVA foam. It should give all the support the head needs on its own, and if it doesn't, I can glue some aluminum strips inside of it. I can use my full-size picture for part placement on the neck. Basically, how far down from the top edge does everything sit? I still have the neck spikes that I made when I first built the head. I can check the size of the printout. Surprisingly, that's fairly accurate to the drawing. Okay. I lay the paper back out and start to mark where the spikes are going to be placed. And all the details in the neck are symmetrical, so I can fold the pattern in half. And I've marked where the spikes will go. The big spine will cover over the seam on the back of the neck. I draw the vent that will be over my face. The size is determined from the full-scale printout and some reference pictures. The frame of that vent will be 20mm, or the width of my smaller ruler. On each side of the neck, there's a panel that is as low as the small spike in the back, and both ends of the panel are rounded. I cut out all the marks in the pattern, making a stencil that I can use to trace the outlines on my foam neck. Now, this was the easiest and most accurate way that I could think of for placing these details, other than just guessing. The black ink lines are to be cut out. I have pencil lines for the spikes in the back of the neck. That's just replacement. I have really decent vision out of these holes. I measure how much of the head I want to poke out of the top of the neck, and then I draw a line on the inside of the neck to match. This is where I will make a shelf to hold the head. I am using contact cement to glue the edges of the neck together, and I'm going to add a strip of 4mm to make the seam stronger. When the contact cement dries and gets sticky, the 4mm strip is put in. This strip does not go above the shelf line that I made in the neck. And then the edges are pressed together. The 4mm strip inside keeps the back of the neck from making a peak, like the bow of a boat. Now this part doesn't rotate. There'll be a couple of hinges on the piece I'm going to wear underneath it that'll allow it to tilt back and forth a little bit with my head inside, right? And that's all this part does. And that's why I think I can get some physical support off my shoulders for the head, because there'll be a hard pivot here. To make the shelf inside of the neck, I cut a couple of strips of 6mm thick foam. These are about 2 centimeters wide by about 81 centimeters long. and everything is glued with contact cement. And I carefully stick the strip inside of the neck, keeping it right on that line that I had drawn for making the shelf. I had the neck made, and I had put one ring around on the inside. That wasn't enough. I put in a second ring. I added a ring to the base of the head, right over the paint. That's not my favorite thing to do, but that's okay. And now the head fits easily on top of the neck. The head that goes inside is more to give me the control to be able to turn this head. And that does work, but since nothing's glued or really screwed down right now, it's not really working very well. But once the neck is solid and I turn my head, I can see out the sides a little bit, so I can actually navigate corners, and that's pretty exciting. I'll need to make the faceplate, and I'll put some details on the neck, and I can move on to making the chest. The head movement is a little stiff, so I sand down the rings on the inside. If I had used a 6mm strip and maybe a 4mm strip, it probably would have been a lot better. The shoulder pieces that go on the side, like the Mechagodzilla's shoulders, come up very high, almost within 1.5 inches or so of this port here. It's gonna come up this tall. I can put a pretty large hinge here. So what I wanna do is cut up some of my floor mat foam and make a pair of really big hinges that where one can glue to the chest and one glues to the helmet, or even probably be better if the helmet's set on it. I'll do that. I'll make it so the helmet sets on it, like a yoke, maybe with magnets. I cut a piece of floor mat foam just to see what shape I wanted to make the shoulder hinge from. And when I have something that works, I trace 4 copies onto a heavy-duty kneeling pad. And then I cut them out on my bandsaw. The bandsaw is an easy way to keep a 90-degree angle on thick material like this. But on 2 of the edges, I tilt the table of the saw to something close to the slope that's on my shoulders. I need the hinge pins to be level while my shoulders are not. I'm going to use a 3/4 inch PVC pipe for the hinge pin. I mash a side on one of the pads to mark the hole where I want it to be, and drill out a 26mm hole. These Forstner bits go right through EVA foam with no problem, but you want to ease up on the bit a few times and let the scraps fly out. If you just force them and compress them all under the bit, the hole will distort and it's not going to be exactly the size that you want. Turn the drill off, line up a new part, turn the drill back on, and then mark the next hole. And repeat this process for the remaining pieces. Put all the parts together and see how they work. Oh yeah, yeah. There's that too. You're not going to clear. You're going to have to make this round, or it's just not going to effing work. All right, details. I can do that. I mark where I need to cut the hinges for the parts to clear, and cut down the inside pieces to clear my shoulders. I trace the outline onto the side of the neck and then cut it out. So I've got my support working. These are hinges that can move. It's able to attach here. Well, let's show you how it works. So what I have is a triple layer of EVA foam and a little bit of a metal strip, and then I've got a pair of rare earth magnets on each side. I might need to add in a third. Gravity is going to do most of the work to hold them onto these magnets. I just wanted a little bit of extra to keep it from just falling off. And all I was looking for was something to kind of hold it in place. It's okay that the head comes off. I want it to come off so it'll come off my head. I don't plan on actually fighting around ancient Japanese temple models and falling on the ground. I don't think the rest of the costume will be able to handle that any more than the head connection will. So I think this is going to work. What I need to do next is make the face plate for the wearer. There's an air conditioning vent that goes in the front. So I'll be making that next, and I think that's also going to be held in place with magnets. To make the face plate, I create a cardboard pattern and then cut out the cover from an old air conditioning vent. This perforated steel is pretty close to what's actually in the movie suit. Getting it bent to be the same radius and angle of the neck is a little tricky, but not too difficult. I line the outside of the vent opening with magnet tape. I put contact cement on the foam to help the tape stick. and the perforated steel, which I painted black, easily sticks to the magnet tape. I just need a decorative frame to put around it. So I cut a frame from some 10mm thick self-adhesive EVA foam. And it's all cut out as one piece, so there's no corner seams, and it can easily stick to the metal grill. I cut small strips of 2mm craft foam to cover over the cut edges of the steel. For the vents that go over the grill, I cut strips of 5mm thick self-adhesive EVA foam and stick them right onto the grill with a gentle curve, because the vents in the movie, they all have a slight curve to them. I covered the entire grill with these vents, and once they're painted silver, it should help to hide my face behind them. I add a drop of super glue on the corner of each vent to help lock it in place. And then I start to super glue tiny foam circles around the frame to be the rivets. I make a template to help space the rivets out equally. The distance between the side rivets are only 14mm. The other ones on the top and the bottom are 16mm. I can use the templates again to get the rivets that'll go around the side panels. I have some window screen cut to fit. That way I can see out of them, but it'll also give me more airflow. There are so many rivets. I'll need to make some more chainmail during my Monday live streams because I'm starting to run out of rivets already. For the bumps that go on the side screens, I cut some 28mm EVA foam balls in half. And please note, these are not cat toys. 4 of them will get glued onto the screen on each side, but I just need to paint them first. I stick them on the ends of skewers to make it easy to paint them separately. The last neck detail are the spikes that I made when I made the head last time. These are glued on with contact cement. This was the first piece that I placed on my template, but they're the last piece to be applied to the neck. It seems almost criminal it took me this long to get here. Now, I only gave myself a couple of really working days to do it, but still, it seems like it took a lot longer than it should have to get to this point. But I'm here now, so I can actually cover it with black Plastidip and maybe start painting this thing. I paint all of the neck with black Plastidip spray. Black is always a good base for any metallic color. I also painted the hemispheres for the side of the neck. I didn't want to paint the visor again. I used black foam on purpose, so I could just hand paint the frame and vents with silver acrylic paint. I didn't want to clog the grill up with more spray paint. I mixed the same silver paint with window cleaner at a 50-50 mix and sprayed the mixture over the neck with my touch-up gun. Now, this is basically an oversized airbrush, but it can take a lot more abuse. Once the silver paint is dry, I glue the window screens back in place and add on the now silver hemispheres. My friend Joe was willing to help out with his airbrush to get the shading again, like we did on the head. He has the patience and the delicate touch needed for airbrush work. I can attach the hinges. It'll be nice to see how this works once they're glued to my chest piece I'll be making in next week's video, and I'll be able to fully test fit the helmet neck assembly. Most of the materials I used for this project I picked up locally. I put a list in the description. What's really kind of funny is how much I feel like a 1950s robot, right? Just the way the head is. I mean, I've got this monster head on top, but just the neck here really makes me feel like the old school bucket head robots. Okay, this thing's totally working. There's parts about this that aren't working terribly well. There's a lot of friction between the neck and the head. So without the full upper body constructed yet, there isn't enough resistance for the head to be able to freely turn. I really have to hold on to the neck in order to get any kind of movement going on. I mean, it's there, it's working, but I've ordered some low density, like Teflon tape, but it's a different type of low friction tape from Amazon. Hopefully that'll be showing up, and I'll put that between the parts to help with lubricating the pieces so they can slide back and forth a little more. I might have to put a chin strap on the helmet. Now, I knew this to begin with, and that's not a huge surprise, but getting a chin strap to actually connect on once the helmet's on isn't going to be easy. So I don't know if I can actually do that or not, but I am pretty happy that I'm able to have my face exposed easily while the whole costume's on. Now, once I'm fully suited up, I'm not going to be able to do this.
that's not gonna happen. I'm not gonna have that kind of mobility. I'm gonna be an action figure, basically. I'm not gonna have much more going on than that. But, so I'm gonna need a handler, but it's be easy enough to have the faceplate come off and go back on without a big problem. I might need to improve the magnets. I'm not convinced the magnet tape is the best route because it doesn't have that positive of a stick. So I might take all this magnet tape off and replace it with 4 or 6 little button magnets that can actually just connect to each other and have a more positive connection. But I'll worry about that later because right now I'm freaking Mechagodzilla. So this is working. I'm really happy. I've got a few more challenges to fix, but I'm gonna keep working on it. And the very next episode, next week, I'm gonna start making the upper chest portion of my 1974 Mechagodzilla. And it's still gonna be made out of foam because this is how Odin makes. I have an idea of what some of you might be thinking. Congratulations, Odin. You made a bucket. Thank you. I want to thank Larry Unger, Sean Parker, and all of my Patreon supporters. My Patreon support is the #1 thing that makes this show possible. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe. Have an idea for something for me to make? Please leave a comment below. And if you make any of these projects, you can send me a picture.